your calls on this. Is it OK for eco-protesters to target holidaymakers? Lots of people jetting off at the moment. 0207 862 2222 is the number to give us a ring on this one. Today, members of environmental protest group Just Stop Oil have painted the walls, floors and departure boards at Heathrow. There they are, Terminal 5. 2 people have been arrested. There's quite a lot of orange paint going on there. Yesterday, though, they blockaded the departure gates at Gatwick Airport. Holidaymakers were seen actually stepping over the protesters as they were heading on their summer hauls. Now, Just Stop Oil want to target airport and disrupt the holiday industry as they aim to raise awareness about the fossil fuel economy. Is targeting holidaymakers, though, the right move, Mike, do you think?
No, I just don't get the philosophy of these people. They're one of the most pointless bunch of protesters I've ever come across in my life.
Pointless?
Yes, pointless.
Talking about the climate crisis is pointless?
Talking about the climate crisis is fine. We all know there's a climate crisis. But we also know that the United Kingdom contributes a minimal amount of emissions into the atmosphere compared to China and America and India. Why don't they go and protest there? And the other thing I dislike enormously about these people is they're so arrogant in that their own self-belief is the only point of view worth having. I was so glad when those people went to jail last week, when the judge pointed out, you know, that in that queue of cars that were stopped on the M25, right, people missed funerals, they missed flights, they missed exams. A patient suffering from an aggressive cancer missed his appointment. A special needs child who was late for school missed taking vital medication. They don't have any consideration for anybody's life except their own in this pointless protest, which is not going to change a single thing. And they're empty-headed, in my view, sitting around spraying screens this morning, trying to destroy some of the world's greatest paintings in art galleries. I think they're pathetic.
Andy, what's your view? Pathetic?
Well, I am terrified, actually, by the ecological crisis that we're facing, and I do think we have to do something. My background is partly in strategic communications, and they are certainly getting themselves out there on the news. Our awareness now of the crisis that we're facing is, I think, exponentially greater than it would have been had they not been carrying out these actions.
Are they targeting the right people, and are they doing it in the right way? Because there's a lot of criticism that actually they're turning people that understand there's a climate crisis that are kind of for their cause against them.
I'm tempted to say no. I hear what you're saying. I'm tempted to say no. Look, if you're trying to change the behaviour of the wealthy and powerful elite, then stopping Janet and Mike from going to Barcelona on time is not going to do that. And if you're trying to turn around the opinions of the Janets and Mikes of this world, everyday people, you and me, then also this isn't necessarily going to help. So that is an own goal. However, perhaps their greater goal is to get the attention of the mass media and to get us all thinking about the crisis we're facing. And if that is their goal, much as I hate to say it, I do think that they're achieving it.
Yeah, we are talking about it today.
Yeah, but their approval ratings are going down, not up. People are talking about it, but they're talking more and more about the dislike of them. I mean, this pointless protest yesterday, what did they do? Sit on the floor, have an orange box saying Just Stop Oil, and then holidaymakers just stepped over them with their suitcases.
What they're doing is now, what we're seeing here, they're on a big screen on national television. That's what they're doing, and that's what they're achieving.
People are saying we dislike these people more and more for their arrogance in ruining everybody else's life.
And I understand that, but we do need to talk about it and think about it.
They think only their point of view is worth considering. They will not consider anybody else's point of view, and I think that is disgraceful. The guy who went to jail last week, who leads Just Stop Oil, he was given a full page in the Daily Mail yesterday to explain his point of view.
Exactly.
They should invite people up who don't agree with them onto a stage at one of the protests to give our point of view.
I'm going to have to pause you there, Mike, later. Let's now speak to Graham Buss from Just Stop Oil. Graham, you've heard what the panel have had to say. Do you think that holidaymakers are the right people to target? I believe that flights are 2.5% of CO2 emissions, so not as big a threat as some other industries.
Let me just start by contradicting what Mike said. What Just Stop Oil does is seen and heard around the world. The Gatwick action yesterday has had 2.2 million views, and our demand to have a fossil fuel treaty which stops the exploration and production and burning of fossil fuels, there's a website for that, and it went up 8,000% the number of people going to that website.
Well, I'm very pleased that you're attracting people, but I'm sorry, I just can't see what your end game is. because I don't believe the world's on fire. I also don't believe that any of the actions you're taking are going to extend the life of the Earth by another 100 years. We're kept being told that it's a catastrophe and all that. I don't see any problems.
Let Graham come back on that.
Mike, you're a football journalist, aren't you?
Yeah. I have been.
I've spent my career in science. I have a PhD. I worked for Shell. I've seen the failure of the oil companies to address this issue and to use their power to change the laws. I have seen I understand the science, whereas I suspect, in fact, I would say from your remarks, that you simply don't. I can give you some very simple examples. We know we've seen it all around the world. We've seen the forest fires, the destructions, the flooding, the displacements of people. But let's just take London, where I'm staying at the moment. I'm in London. Now, London, we're expecting to see significant flooding in the future. That report just came out a couple of days ago on this. A significant flooding.
It's a projection.
Oh, hold on, let him finish his point.
Oh, dear. Look, you're a football journalist. Do you not do predictions? Let's get things straight here. Let me speak, please. We know that this is going to happen. This is not just guesswork. This is what we're already seeing, the rise in flooding. We're already seeing the rise in temperatures. Now, the consequence of that in London is that we're going to see very significant subsidence. So by the end of this decade, we're going to see, roughly speaking, 40% of the properties in London are at significant subsidence risk. That means a lot of money is going to be spent. And then ultimately what's going to happen is the insurance companies will stop insuring for these issues. And we're seeing that all around the world already. In California, it's happened, for example, 2 years ago it happened. We're seeing the desertification of Spain, for example. That is not a prediction.
But Graham, there's very few people out there that would argue that we're in a climate crisis. The question that we're posing, Mike may, but very few people. You actually have a lot of people on your side in terms of your cause. My question to you is whether you are targeting the right people. A lot of the general public feel that you should maybe be targeting the government directly and not people going off on their summer holidays.
Yeah, we have targeted the government directly. And it doesn't make any difference. I've tried myself, and I know many people have, to behave politely. That level of engagement makes no difference at all. And what I'm saying is that the disruption we cause, it is disruption, and I do regret that it's disruption, but the disruption we're going to see is vastly worse than that, vastly worse. We're going to see, if we carry on the way we're going now, we're going to see the collapse of civilization.
No, it's an imperfect science.
That's what David Attenborough said.
That's a ridiculous statement. That's a ridiculous. The collapse of civilization. What a silly statement. I believe the climate is changing.
Hang on,
right? And it's for a lot of reasons. It's for a lot of reasons, but it's an imperfect science. The trouble is with people from your side is you won't accept it's an imperfect science. You think you're right. Governments have not accepted a lot of what you've said because government scientists cannot find the evidence.
Okay, Graham,
let me explain it to you, Mike. Look, this is the best prediction. The 50-50 prediction is that we're going to get to a temperature of, I'll tell you what it is, but it's just a number, 2.7 degrees above pre-industrial levels. We're currently about 1.6. Okay. Now that's the median case. That's the 50-50 case. Now you're a journalist. You know about betting. That's the 50-50 case. But there's a significant chance, a sort of bet that you'd place on a horse, that it could be much worse. Okay. So there's a significant risk that we will see the collapse of civilization.
Okay, Graham, I'm just going to pause you there because the explanations are quite long and I just want to get a couple of calls in as well. Mary from Northumberland, what do you think about these protesters on Holidaymakers? Are they protesting against the right people? I mean, these are the people that are taking flights here and there. Maybe we need to reduce that.
I think they protesting the wrong people. I think they are doing it for easy targets. Where does Mr. Graham go on holiday? How does he get there? Does he arrange for the protesters to be out of the airport when he's getting on his aeroplane? Why don't they target the rich and famous people who stand for photo opportunities? Why don't they spray their jets?
Okay.
Why don't they spray their mega yachts?
Mary, I mean, they have targeted rich and famous people, but your accusation to Graham about going on holiday, Graham, do you venture on holiday yourself very often?
I do, yeah, and I completely understand that being disrupted is very upsetting. And but I have to say, disruptions are normal in this country now, aren't they? Disruptions
but
from all
you
sorts of
understand-
things are normal.
You understand that people at home might think it pretty hypocritical of you to defend disruption to people going on holiday in order to try and discourage fossil fuel production, which you need for flying a plane, and yet you're still getting on a plane and going to places.
No, I don't want to fly. Haven't flown for years. That's not why we're making. It's not why this is not about airports. This is about fossil fuel use.
Yes.
Our actions on the M25 were not about cars. They're about fossil fuel use, and that's why we do the things we do, because we have to stop extracting and burning fossil fuels. And Mike,
Yeah.
I'm afraid, sadly, he's a football journalist. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Well, you can't compare a horse race to the future of the world. That is a trite comparison. And Graham,
That's
you want to stop oil. When would you like all oil and gas production in the world to stop? When?
Well, ideally, it should have happened about 20, 30 years ago, shouldn't it?
Right. Well, then
And
society
now it's
would
about
collapse. Then society would collapse.
Okay.
You know it would.
No, it
We
wouldn't.
have to. Yeah, of course we do. Oil is in everything we do. It's in the clothes we wear. It's in the cars that we run on roads. Society would collapse
All right,
without
Mike,
oil.
I'm very conscious I haven't heard
It's
from
going
Andy
to
very
collapse
much either, so I'm
anyway
going to come
if
to you in a
you
minute.
carry on with oil and gas.
Dan from South Yorkshire, what's your view when it comes to these protests? They've been heading to the airports, Heathrow and Gatwick, two large airports around the London area.
Well, it's ridiculous. Like I said to your researcher on the M25 protesters on the gantries, and you could see the people getting past the airport where they'd glued their hands to the post and through those fixtures they had. Just leave them.
I missed that last bit. You think we should just leave them sitting on the floor?
Yeah, just leave them. How long do you think they'd stay? How long do you think they'd stay there?
It would only allow them to protest for longer, I think, a substantial amount of time, longer than you would expect, I imagine, Stan.
Well,
but let's talk about
point.
this protest. This one is the one at Gatwick yesterday, and I thought this was an interesting protest because actually there wasn't any aggression in this. People were just sort of stepping over the protesters. The protesters didn't seem to be aggravating those going on holiday either. This, I actually thought, quite a peaceful protest, no, Mike?
Well, yeah, it was a peaceful protest, but it was completely ineffective.
But isn't this exactly what you want from a protest?
No.
You want it to be not hurt anyone, not affect anyone in an emergency situation. This wasn't stopping anyone getting to hospital or an appointment.
Honestly,
this was merely a slight inconvenience at getting to the departure
I get
lounge.
the feeling a lot of the time, these protests, the young people sitting there are sitting there and saying, look, I'm a protester, I'm a good person, and you lot are bad people because you're getting onto aeroplanes and you're flying. It's a ridiculous notion
But
that we could run the world without gas or oil.
Wouldn't that be an argument against all protesters, not just Stop Oil or climate protesters?
No.
Because anyone protesting is protesting for something that they think would be a benefit to society, so something that they think is morally better. And therefore, you're just saying that you don't want protests at all because they're on their moral high horse?
No, I'm saying that, and I've said it to Graham a couple of times, it's an imperfect science, climate change. When Graham wants to compare a bet with a racehorse to a bet that he says 50-50 on how the world goes, you can't. A racehorse can or cannot win a race, but you can't have a bet on the future of the world unless you absolutely know your stuff. And you can't know your stuff if you're betting either way.
Graham?
These numbers don't come from me. They come from the scientific community, and it's the vast number of scientific communities. And of course, you get slightly different views, and that view is a spread, just like you get in betting. And the median case, the 50-50 case at the moment, is a catastrophic collapse, and the extreme case, if you like, that is the end of civilization. Now, that's the numbers. Now, of course, there is also a probability of it getting much better, but that's just gravy, isn't it? What we have to do is we have to address the worst possible case, because who wants that to be true? I come from an engineering background. When you build a new facility, you have to address the worst possible case, and that's a credible position. To ignore it is just saying, well, it doesn't matter, does it?
But a judge recently called your people fanatics. they cross the line to fanaticism. And if fanatics are trying to prove a case, there's often something very wrong with their arguments.
How did you feel about the accusation about being fanatics, that climate protesters are verging on fanaticism now?
Well, I think in the normal meaning of the word fanatic, that's as it's used, that's completely untrue. We're basing everything we do on the science. We are doing the job of the government. The government said in the Paris Agreement 2015 that they would inform the public of the severity of the climate and climate breakdown. The last government didn't do it, and the current government is still not doing it.
Okay, Graham, Bus, thank you very much for your time on that. We'll have to move on now.